so it will make sense when we get there. 2 Samuel 17 and verse 27. Remember, David arrives at Mahanaim, and he was warmly greeted, it says, by Shobi, verse 27. 2 Samuel 17, 27. David arrived at Mahanaim. He was warmly greeted by Shobi, son of Nahash of Rabbah, an Ammonite, and by Micaiah, son of Amiel of Lodabar, and by, and here's this character, Barzillai of Gilead from Rogelim, whatever his name is. I have no idea what his name is. But they brought, listen, and so this man, Barzillai, we'll just call him B, maybe, him. They brought sleeping mats, cooking pots, serving bowls, wheat, barley, flour, roasted grain, beans, lentils, honey, butter, sheep, and cheese for David and those who were with him. For they said, you must all be very tired and hungry and thirsty after your long march through the wilderness. So he's one of the men who provided all of that stuff for David. Remember, David and his men were tired, and God, through them, provided for him all the honey, the butter, the sheep, all of that. I say that because in verse 31, we meet that character again. In 2 Samuel 19:31. We finished last week by talking about David and Mephibosheth and how amazing the story sounded about, even linked to Jesus, and how Jesus was gracious and kind and all of that. In verse 31, it says, that man of Gilead arrived from that place to conduct the king across the Jordan. David is going home. David is going to cross the Jordan, and this man comes to help David cross the river. Look, whilst everything changes, nothing changes. And on Sunday, and again, it's amazing, I don't plan this, the Lord just does these things. We were talking about like being a team and being united and being under a banner. It's amazing how often the enemy tries to divide any kind of team. David has been kind to Mephibosheth. All this stuff is going on. This man is now going to help. And even God's people, remember in Acts what started the trouble in Acts? The widows, they thought they were getting mistreated, right, in the distribution of the food. And that's what actually led to the implementation of deacons, because Peter said, I've got to preach and pray. You guys will have to do that. But they were complaining. Whenever you get a whole bunch of people together, one of the most difficult things to do is not get your feelings hurt, not get hurt, and not think that you're somehow getting mistreated or not someone is getting treated better than you. And look, I'll show you in this story. It's really, really strange. And you can see the enemy all over it, but in the midst of it, maybe you don't. Look at what it says in verse 31. This man, he took the king across the Jordan. He was very old, about 80. Well, anyway, we'll move on. So if you're 80 or older, biblically, you're very old. I didn't say that. We'll move on. If you're 79, we can question it. 80, you're very old. And very wealthy. So now you want to be him, don't you? All right. He was very old. He was very wealthy. He was the one who had provided food, which is why I took you back there, for the king during his stay in Mahanaim. So he was 80. He was wealthy. He was the one who had provided the food. So when we read, that's who provided it. Come across with me and live in Jerusalem, the king said to him. I will take care of you there. Here's David. David's this weird character, but here's the grace, the mercy, the goodness of the king. The king looks at him and said, and why is he doing that? Here's the idea of ministry again. When David needed something, when David's men were tired, when they didn't have anything, who showed up? This man did. Yeah, B. He showed up, right? And he financed and he gave David food. David in now reciprocation, and this is how kind of church works, right? When you have a need, someone blesses you, and then when you can help them, if it's always you getting blessed, then that's out of kilter. And if it's always you blessing, we're never getting blessed, that's out of kilter. Right? You can't survive very well in a relationship that's one-sided. If you're always giving, then that's going to lead to issues. If you're always getting, then that's a problem too. And burnout in church is when one of those two things happen. When you always give but you can't receive, or where you always receive and can't give, it's going to mess up at some point. This man has been good by God's grace, and this is how God gives us gifts that we have no idea about. I bet before he was 80 and wealthy, he never knew he was going to be in Scripture helping the king of Israel. See, what God gives you, you never know why he's giving you this stuff, right? And I have no idea what he did with his money, how he got. All I know about him is he gave food, he's old, he's wealthy, and I can't pronounce his name. That's pretty much my knowledge of this guy. But you see, God provided him so that he could provide for his king. This is how it works. God gives to him so he could give. If this guy doesn't give, then, God will figure that out. But so David now reciprocates that. David's got a lot to that. The guy might not need much because he's rich. Yeah. And we're going to see how that his problems in life in a minute. But David comes back and he says, I want to take care of you. Come across with me and live in Jerusalem. I will take care of you. That's a pretty cool moment, isn't it? This is how it works. You help me, I help you, and everyone's good. In verse 34, he said, no, I'm far too old for that. I'm 80 years old today, and here he look at what he says. The ways you might be able to bless me aren't really going to work. Look at what he says. I can no longer enjoy anything. Food and wine are no longer tasty, and I cannot hear the musicians as they play. So he's like, well, if you bring me music or you want to help me with any kind of music, I can't hear. If you want to feed me anything, I can't taste it. If you want to give me wine, I can't take that. So whatever you think you're going to help me with, I'm 80, I'm old, my body's shutting down. He's like, look, just leave me. But look at what he says. I would only be a burden to my Lord, the king. Just to go across the river with you is all the honor I need. This is amazing. I just want to be a part of this. I just want to cross the river with you. There's an honor. And he says, just to go across the river with you is all the honor I need. God is putting men around David to encourage him. Mephibosheth has said, I don't need anything. I just need you. Now this man comes and says, David, I just want to cross with you. God is like. Before you read on, you should know the answer. If you've read on, you know the answer. When God is sending person after person to encourage you, to speak to you, to lift you up, to be good to you, to be gracious to you, what do you almost inevitably know is going to happen? Yeah, when you ever heard the phrase when everything was going too well or it's too good to be true? Like God has, not always, I'm not saying always, but if you look at your life, God has a way of encouraging you before you think you need it. Like God knows what's coming. See, wouldn't you do that? Like if you could know what's coming, you could help people. Like if you knew your family was going to go through some stuff before they did, you could try and help before it happens. God knows everything. So whenever you're getting over, like, all of this ministry at you, you kind of know something, either God's going to use you or God doesn't do anything for no reason. And David, he's had Mephibosheth say, man, I just want to be with you. This man's like, look, I just want to cross the river with you. It's like everybody's loving him. Everyone's taking care of him. That's weird. Right? Something's going to happen. You can almost feel it. Look what happened. He says, just let me go across the river. Let me return again to die in my own town where my father and Murray and my mother are buried. But here is my son Kimham. Let him go with you and receive whatever good things you want to give him. This is a cool moment, right? So he says, my mom and dad are buried there. I want to go, but I've got a son. Would you bless my son? This is really cool, right? This again is how teams work. You can't bless me in that way, but there's someone here you can. Right? I can't taste anymore. I can't. The inference is his son is young enough to enjoy what? Yeah. His son can be blessed by David. And he says to him, look, I don't need that. I'm old and I want to be buried here anyway, next to my mother and father. I'll just be a burden to you. And in this awesome moment, he says, but here's my son. Let him go with you and receive whatever good things you want to give him. So David's going to take him in because of his relationship with this other man. This is how ministry works. Again, I don't know his son, but because of you, I'll help. I'll minister. I'll take him in. Good, the king agreed. Kimham will go with me, and I will do for him whatever I would have done for you. This is like the cool side of David. This is the gracious, the king, the person you want to be. He says, I'll do for him what I would have done for you. In other words, because you blessed me, now I want to bless you. And if I can't bless you, I'll bless this, who you want me to, this Kimham, your son. So all the people crossed the Jordan with the king. What a moment. He's going back home. They've defeated Absalom. He's going back home. Home's special, right? Especially when you've been on the run, when you've been Absalom has died, the rebellion is over, and David gets to go home. And when you go home, what do you want to do? You want to recover from wherever you've been, right? You want to relax. When you get home and you have to do something, that's a bummer. He goes home. He's going home. He's crossing the Jordan. After David had blessed and embraced him, Barzillai or whatever returned to his own home. And the king went on to Gilgal, taking Kimham with him. All the army, listen to this, all the army of Judah and half the army of Israel escorted him across the river. That's going to be important. So David is going home. No one's trying to be funny. No one's trying to mess anybody up. It says all the army of Judah. Remember, Judah and they've all decided they need to get behind David. Judah, his tribe, who was the last one in, now says we're all in, and he says all the army of Judah and half the army of Israel escorted him across the river. Seems like an unimportant bit of information, but that's going to cause World War II. 3. World War II has already been 3. Look what happens. And this is what I'm saying. This is what the devil does. Something that means nothing. Something that is so benign. This should be a time of what? Hold on. This should be a time of what? Celebration of what? Yeah, well, going home. But it's really a celebration of God protecting the king again. Here's another battle. Saul was one massive battle. He's beaten him. Absalom comes. Absalom tries to take the throne. And that's what I'm saying. Whenever God is encouraging you, whenever his right hand is with you, whenever you're winning fights, that's when the devil seems to, right? Yeah. If you really want to help the situation, you just want David to be what? You just want David to be king, you want him to be home, and you want to be part of the team. However that looks, right? However your part of the team looks. Look what happens. The men of Israel, in other words, the 10 tribes, the people not in Judah, who half of them came. Half of them came. It's not like none of them did. Half of them came. But the men of Israel complained to the king that the men of Judah had gotten to do most of the work in helping him cross the Jordan. This is going to send them into a tizzy. They looked and they said, that's not fair. Hold on. You're joking, right? I mean, we're not talking about abandonment. They said that the men of Judah had gotten to do most of the work in helping him cross the Jordan. When the king crossed, they got to do most of it. This is like a bad business meeting, right? Yeah. This is like a bad church gone wrong. I mean, this is like, well, we didn't get to do it. All right, why not, the men of Judah replied. He says, do most of the work. Why not, the men of Judah replied. The king is one of our, okay. So there's there's ways to handle trouble, right? There's ways to handle strife. So they asked Judah, what's up with you? Why do you get to do it? They answer, the king is one of our own tribe. Whether that's diplomatic or not, you can figure that out, but that's true. David is of the line of Judah. So when they say, why does Judah get? Well, he's from our tribe. So that's part of it. Why should this make you? That is a really good question. Why should this make you angry? What's the answer to that? See, but that's how pride and selfishness and wanting to be seen and wanting to, do you see how little things stir it up? It's not changed. Whether it's Israel, whether it's a church, whether it's a family, whether it's work, whether it's relationships. Do you see how little things the devil takes and then makes you say not fair? And here's the thing. When you say not fair, when you get it in your head that something's not fair, what happens? Okay, that's a good point. It grows. In what way does it grow? There you go. That's perfect. It grows, and then it's going to manifest itself somehow, right? what we've learned about in Daniel even, with all of this stuff going on, that God is simply righteous and you have to give it to him, right? You have to let him deal with it. Plus the fact it's already happened. So whining about it now is kind of... But they ask, why should this make you angry? We have charged him nothing, and he hasn't fed us or even given us gifts. It's like we didn't really get anything out of it. We have charged him. He hasn't fed us. He hasn't given us gifts. They're like, look, David didn't give us any preferential treatment. We didn't get steak and lobster, and you guys didn't get fed. We just wanted to be there too. And all of the tribe, it makes you wonder where the others were that were so desperate to be there. Look at what happens. Verse 43. But there are 10 tribes in Israel, the others replied. Here we go. So their argument is, but there's more of us. We have 10, you have 2, so we're better. So we have 10 times as much right to the king as you do. Why do you treat us with such contempt? I don't think there was any contempt. Yeah, jealous. But look, this is what the devil does in any team. Why do you treat us with such contempt? Remember, we were the first to speak of bringing him back to be our king again. Here we go. So their point is, and you see, this is kind of, whenever you get in an argument and you just have to keep telling how great you are, you probably shouldn't be in that argument. In other words, if you get in an argument and you have to prove to something how good you are, and by trying to win the argument, you're like, I did this and I gave this and you didn't do that, that's probably an argument that's not going to end well. When you have to justify how good you are and how much you've given, and I wasn't going to say, but, well, you done said it. What their point is, and it's true. Remember when people were trying to figure out who to support, Israel came to David and said, we'll take you before Judah did. And that's what they said. Remember, we were the first to speak of bringing him back to be our king again. We were here first. We decided first. So we should get to take him. I mean, but how many, think about this logically. How many people can be right close to David as he crosses the river? I mean, how many people can be right close to you? Yeah, 4 or 5. I mean, it's kind of like when we pray over people, put hands on them. Well, there's only so many people can put your hands on. Yeah. There's 20 people back there that are just doing this number, right? Because they can't get close. It's all, but you see, whatever this is just, you can read it. It's the enemy, right? That's what I'm saying. David has been all like, it's all been good. And then, so, the argument continued back and forth. And the men of Judah were very harsh in their replies. See, here's part of the problem. Here's the trick again. The northern kingdom starts to complain, and they may be wrong, but how does Judah respond? Judah responds with harsh words. You've been there, right? And the problem is that if someone's kind of being crazy, it doesn't give you the right to harsh reply them. And see, this is the balance, right? This is, in a church, this is the balance. If people have complaints, they have to bring them in a certain way, and whoever they're talking to has to respond in a certain way. Do you know how that might sound so easy, but if you're flustered, if you're frustrated, if you're hurt, how hard is it for you to be calm and sensible as you try and explain that? We tend to get what? Emotional and right? And the thing is, if you go in guns blazing to someone, what's their natural response? Yeah. Now, the funny thing is, like, I can't then say, well, you came in guns blazing, so I just got you better. That doesn't sit. That doesn't work with God. But we can both help each other. In other words, if someone has an issue, they can say it in the right way, and whoever has to listen to that, whatever that looks like, they have to respond in the right way. And if we respond in the right way, it can be a whole lot easier. Right? There's ways to express confusion or discouragement, and there's ways to respond to people. Congregations aren't good at it, preachers aren't good at it. You can see how that manifests itself, right? They start getting crazy and saying stuff, and the pastor then gets, right? And whether it's marriage is the same way, right? I don't know about you, not married, but as a kid, I don't know how many times my mother told, it's not what you said.
It's how you said it.
No, there you go.
Oh, boy, if I heard that.
Has anyone else? Yeah, people have heard that. It's not what you said, it's how you say it, right? And I don't know about you, but whenever whether it's Tosh or whatever, give her a zinger and think, I got you, it never really helps me. Then I wonder what's for dinner and think, I should have done that after the fact. But there's this, I mean, think about watching this. What are you arguing about? Well, he got more time than, Okay, here's the problem. Remember what Ephesians says? Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Why? Because anger gives a foothold to the devil. Think about how, you said it, how it manifests itself. Because you got more time with David or did, I won't speak to you no more. Now think, that might sound just petty, and it is petty. But what happens if they go to war? This is what I was talking about on Sunday. What happens now if the tribes are so upset at each other that when they need each other and they need to fight for each other and they need to stand together, they will refuse to stand with each other because I'm still upset about Tuesday when you got more than I did. Do you see how that manifests? And here's the thing. Whenever arguments like that start, it gives a foothold to the devil, and there's always somebody. There's always somebody who's going to see it as their chance to get in. When everyone's arguing and discouraged, now, look at what happens. Chapter 20, Sheba. The troublemaker, how would you like to be known in the Bible as the troublemaker? Like, imagine if that was it. Then the troublemaker named Phil. That would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? Yeah, worthless. That's what a lot of them say is worthless. I don't know what's worse, worthless or troublemaker. You see, when the Lord says stuff like that, like we're too kind of like, you can't call someone worthless. Well, I get that. But God doesn't hold back on his assessment of this man. Think about when God says you're a troublemaker or you're worthless. Yeah, and that's the point, right? If I say you're worthless, you can get mad and argue and say, no, I'm not. But when God says it, so chapter 20, verse 1, a son of Bichri, a man from the tribe of Benjamin, so he's actually not of the 10 tribes, blew a trumpet and shouts, now it's amazing how people decide that they're going to talk for everybody. It's one man who has this idea, and instead of saying I, he says, we. Okay. Well, think about this. How do people get away with that? How do people say we and represent a whole body of people that most people aren't even inclined that way? How do they get away with that? There you go. They're not challenged. Everyone sits on the hand. So when, again, in church, if someone stands up and no one really believes that, he says, well, we don't, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, well, I don't think like that. But nobody wants to really.
I'd say you have a mouse in your pocket.
Well, I've heard that, yes. But this is dangerous, right? And he offers this, he acts like he's got this, and he offers this kind of deal to all these people. He says, we have nothing to do with David. Hold on. See how logically crazy that is? We are in a mood because we didn't get to hang out with you, and now we don't want anything to do with you. Think about that. Think about the logic of that. And that's what I'm telling you. When we get petty like that, our logic goes down the drain. We got upset because we weren't a part of your homecoming. And the next minute it's like, we don't want anything to do with you. What are you talking about? How does that work? Look at what he says. He blew a trumpet. Sometimes the loudest tries to win, right? They blew a trumpet and he shouted, we have nothing to do with David. We want no part of this son of Jesse. And by the way, that's a dig. That son of Jesse, the little one, the insignificant one, you're just a son of Jesse. He doesn't say the king. He says, we have nothing to do with David. We want no part of this son of Jesse. And see, that's what the devil does, right? That's a trap of the devil. People say something, knowing what they're saying, but give themselves enough wiggle room to get out of it. Like, in other words, he knows when he says son of Jesse, he knows what he's saying. He knows he's sticking in the knife. But then when you challenge him and say, you said that, oh, I don't. Right? Oh, I didn't. Uh-huh. Look at what happens. I can't tell you, I mean, it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. And again, I'm grateful that my story is not in the Bible. I'd probably find it hard to get a pastor's job. And I do not want to know the descriptive word. What is the one lesson throughout all? I mean, what is God really trying to teach them? I mean, there's a lot of things. How crazy is it? Wait, who just died? Why did Absalom die? What'd you say? Okay. Why was following Absalom going against God? Okay, so going against David actually meant going against. It's the same thing with Moses. When he went against Moses, you're not going against Moses. He tells them that. You're going against God. This isn't my gig. It's not my idea. I'm following him. So if you're following the Lord and then people, then that's a problem, right? Absalom. So how did it end for Saul? How did it end for Goliath? How did it end for Absalom? Everybody that has come against God's anointed. And one man blows a trumpet and says, "Wee." That's a different version. And look, one guy, this is powerful. Remember a little leaven spoils the whole loaf? How many people do you think it really takes to ruin, well, how many people does it take to ruin a marriage? One. How many people does it take to ruin a family? To ruin a work? To ruin a church?
One bad apple.
One. One. One guy decides he's offended. He blows the trumpet. We want nothing to do with you, David. We want no part of this son of Jesse. If you, any part of understanding Samuel, you think, this is stupid. This is a bad move. And you think, if you didn't read on, you'd think, surely, they're not that crazy. I mean, surely somebody's going to stand up and be like, excuse me, based on previous events, going against David, not work so well. But look what happens. So the men of Israel, the men of Israel, the 10 tribes who were offended because they couldn't honor King David, now decide, we're going to leave. They deserted David and they followed Sheba. What do we know about Sheba? You're following.
He's a troublemaker.
So in following him, you're asking for. And when Sheba does you wrong, when you follow Sheba and inevitably he's going to do you wrong, well, that's because he's a troublemaker.
In the King James Version, calls him a son of Belial.
A what?
A son of Belial.
Oh, the devil?
Yeah. Wow.
Yikes. So this is a toned down version. The men of Israel desert. The problem with that statement is you can give up on men. Look, sometimes you do need to walk away from people. Some pastors you do need to walk away from. No pastor's perfect. No pastor's without. Lots of pastors say you can't touch the Lord's anointed, and I get that, but we also use that as a shield that we can do whatever we want, and then we're just going to chunk that verse at you, and that's wrong too. But they're not deserting David. They're deserting God. Now think about what that means. Like when even in church, if the Lord is leading in a different direction that you don't like or want, and you buck that, then you're not going against the pastor, you're going against. Now look, there's a lot of manipulation in that. The buzzword of the Lord told me or the Lord led me. People, pastors, all kinds of people abuse that. But I'm saying if God has a plan for Lawrence Drive, right? I mean, we hope he does, because if he doesn't, then who does? But we don't understand that, do we? We get hurt, we get depressed, we get discouraged, we get deflated, we didn't get what we wanted, so we try and buck the system, but we don't realize that in bucking the system, like if we're following the Lord and you buck that, then you're turning your back on the Lord. he said, let's go. And it said, so the men of Israel deserted David and followed Sheba. But look what happens. But the men of Judah stayed with their king and escorted him from the Jordan River to Jerusalem. They're there, they escorted him, they got all this. So Judah stays with him. Verse 3, when the king arrived at his palace in Jerusalem, oh, this is wild. This goes into it's like pause, and now we get into this other. Remember when he left, and and this is why maybe David needed encouragement, because this gets a little crazy. Remember, sometimes you leave things and then you have to come back and face reality, right? Mm-hmm. Remember what David had been told. The sword will never leave your family. And what you did in secret, God's going to allow to happen what? And remember what happened? Yeah, his son slept with his concubines on the roof. Now, when he left, when Absalom was after him and he left, what did he do? He left 10 concubines in his house. We don't really know why, to keep after the house. But it was those concubines then, because David had left, got messed up. That's the ones they slept with, because they were left with, David just kind of left them. Now he comes home. Sheba's trying to get a following. You see why the Lord may want to be speaking to David and encouraging him? He instructed that the 10 concubines he had left to keep house should be placed in seclusion. Their needs were to be cared for, but he would no longer sleep with them, so each of them lived like a widow until she died. This is like, David is, I don't think he locked them up like, you're not getting out the house. I think he realized, last time I left you, nothing good happened. So he took care of them, but notice, and it's wild, he kind of wants now, because of all that's happened, he doesn't want to what? He doesn't want to have relationships with them anymore. So he just leaves them, and they all, 10 of them now have to live like widows until they're dead. It's wild. David is good to them. He's gracious to them. Maybe he's trying to make up. But this is a constant reminder, isn't it? Because all of this problem, why the concubines got slept with, all gets traced back to what? This is part of David sleeping with Bathsheba leads to, God said, what you did in private is going to now happen in. So as a direct, how comfortable you are looking at, and maybe that's why, how comfortable you looking at those concubines knowing what you put them through. Knowing that your sin caused them to have this, and then he leaves them, and in leaving them, they get, his son sleeps with them out in the middle of, and not quietly, this is exactly what God said. He would sleep with them right on top of the housetop, and he did. So look what happens. The king, now remember, David had stopped Joab. Here we go again. Who's the king? Okay. If you want a king, which is what they wanted, who gets to call the shots? Okay. Who doesn't like the king calling the shots? Well, Sheba. I didn't mean like literally a name, but that's true. What kind of person doesn't want the king calling the shots? Okay, one that wants to be in charge. That's one. Well, who else? Jealous, absolutely. What else? One who wants to be in charge, one who's jealous, one who wants to do it their way, right? Which is kind of like being in charge, I guess. So David is taking care of the concubines, but man, in the midst of this, that's just it's a reminder of what he's done. And a reminder of, man, you need to be holy like the Lord is holy. Otherwise, I mean, I don't think in a way David ever got away from his sin, do you? He'd lost his son. It's tragic. Remember, Joab has been his chief commander, right? Joab's a hothead. We're really going to, if we have time, we'll find out. Joab has been this man. He was involved even in the whole Uriah thing. The king instructed Amasa. Remember, Amasa, his nephew, he had told Amasa that he wanted him to be commander. Well, here's the thing. How much did Joab want that to happen? So when the king of Israel says, step aside, what do you have to do? But see, that's where unity, that's where the benefit of the team. Some people get so upset with that it doesn't matter what happens to anything or the team. I want what? So the king has said, Amasa, it's you. At which point, this isn't a democracy. This isn't a vote. This isn't a, hey, can we talk about this? When David says, you're it, guess what? You're it. So he says, hey, Amasa, you're my man. You're the new commander. Joab, and you can see Joab is, Lord, you said, it's going to manifest itself. The king instructed Amasa to mobilize the army of Judah within 3 days and to report back. So he's got this revolt. He's got another revolt now. He's got Sheba. So he needs to figure out what to do with Sheba. So he says to Amasa, mobilize the army of Judah within 3 days and to report back at that time. So you got 3 days. Come and tell me what's happening. Amasa went out to notify the troops, but it took him longer than the 3 days he had been given. So we don't know really what happened or why that is. David says, go out. And by the way, this is your first assignment. If it's your first assignment, you might want to... It's like your first thing at work, the first task they give you. If they say do it in 3 days and 3 days later it's not done, you're not off to a good start. So he says, come back within 3 days. So he did. He went out, but the Bible says it took him longer than the 3 days he had been given. David knows he's under what? He's under threat. And so he says to Abishai, not to Joab, to Abishai, that troublemaker Sheba is going to hurt us more than Absalom did. David gets a little what? He's a little impatient. He wants to move tactically. He says, this troublemaker is going to be worse than Absalom was. Quick, take my troops and chase after him before he gets into a fortified city where we can't reach him. We got to go quick, because if he gets into a fortified city, if he went somewhere like Jericho, just to get into Jericho, you'd have to fight a lot, right? You'd have to, bring down walls. So he says, look, if you don't go quick, we've already wasted 3 days. If you don't go quick, he'll hide in the city, and then we can't get him. You know God's going to move for David, right? And how he moves is amazing. I hope I get there. So Abishai and Joab set out after Sheba. Hold on. Abishai and Joab, whenever Joab gets involved in this, what's going to happen? Joab has just been looked over. Joab got demoted. How many people can... See, that's part of the team sometimes. What happens if God switches your position? What happens if God demotes you? Can you take it? You can understand how difficult that is, right? I mean, at a school, imagine if you were principal and vice principal and you switched. I bet that would be a challenge. I bet if you were boss and someone under you and you switched, I mean, it'd be weird to wake up tomorrow and have to say, yes, sir, 10 times to Dwayne, right? But I mean, that switch would be cool in some ways, because the next trouble, I'm not the pastor, you are. There's a benefit to it, but there'll also be a time where you're like, man, he told me I couldn't have that day off before I... Right? Joab is this classic case of when you're in a man's off, what would you tell Joab? Joab, just settle down. Trust the Lord, follow him, he'll figure it out. So look what happens. Abishai and Joab set out after Sheba with an elite guard from Joab's army and the king's own bodyguard. As they arrived at the great stone in Gibeon, Amasa met them. So we don't know if they arranged this, but they meet at this great stone in Gibeon. It doesn't tell you what Amasa's been doing. He met them coming from the opposite direction. As soon as, and this has been plotted, as soon as he sees Amasa, Joab has one thing in mind. Kill him. Why does he want to kill Amasa? Because Amasa took his spot. You'll find that Joab gets taken out by Solomon later. David sorts it out before he dies. But Joab wants to kill him. Joab, do you see why it's so important to have your inner man fight? Like Joab doesn't care what David says, and he obviously doesn't care what the Lord thinks. He's just going to go and this is a classic case of, I'm going to take it into my own hands. You ever done that? You ever done your own thing and said, I'm going to do it my way instead of the Lord's way? Guess how many times that has worked out well for you? And imagine this is Joab's really like oh man, he's one of those kind of, look at what it says. He stepped forward, this is like, he stepped forward to greet him. Look at what it says. Joab was wearing his uniform with what? A dagger attached to his belt. Who was the dagger meant to be for? Sheba. He doesn't even care about the cause of the team. What is the mission? Kill who? Get who? Stop the revolt of Sheba. That's the job. And instead of following protocol, instead of following the job, what's he cared about? His own self, his own job, his own position. No matter what that means, no matter what the cost, I don't care. And look at him. He's really sly. He steps forward to greet Amasa. Some say he grabbed his beard, right? You know what's weird about that? You know why they grabbed beards like that? It was to welcome one another with a kiss. Well, who does that remind you of? Yeah, Judas. You betrayed me with a... So check this out. He meets Amasa, and he does the normal thing. Oh, hey, good to see you, buddy. And he greets him. He steps forwards to greet him. Amasa's going to hug him, and he takes a dagger out. Now, you've heard the expression, if looks could kill, they just put daggers in my back. And look at what he says. How are you, my cousin? It's his own cousin. And he's like, hey, cousin, how you doing? Oh, it's so good to see you. Yeah. Joab, and he took him by the beard with his right hand as though to kiss him. Amasa didn't notice the dagger in his left hand. Oh, he's like a magician. He's like a sleight of hand. He's grabbing him here, and then look at what it says. Amasa didn't notice the dagger in his left hand, and Joab stabbed him in the stomach with it so that his insides gushed out onto the ground. Joab did not need to strike again, and Amasa soon died. Well, one thing about it is Joab's a good shot. I mean, think about that. He grabs him, says, how you doing, and then and it's one kill, one shot. And his guts are literally gushing out onto the ground. At that point, I'm out. Half of my guts would be out too. I cannot watch that. And look, if it doesn't get worse, now look, how callous, how messed up is this? He murders a guy, his cousin, nonetheless, in broad daylight, doesn't say, oh man, probably shouldn't have done that. They look at him, they see the guts gushed out, and they're like, all right, now we can go. Now that I got rid of what I wanted. I mean, look, Joab's story, you don't want to be Joab in this moment. And so Abishai, Amasa soon died. Joab and his brother Abishai left their cousin lying there and continued after Sheba. Like, now I can be the man, I'll get involved in what... One of Joab's young officers shouted to Amasa's troop, if you are for Joab and David, come and follow Joab. But Amasa, see, that's exactly what Joab wants, right? Amasa lay in his blood in the middle of the road, and Joab's officers saw that a crowd was gathering around to stare at him. This is crazy. They're trying now to get everyone, you can't make this up. They're trying to make everyone follow Joab. Like, nothing to see here, move on. They've left him in the middle of the road. what's happening is, you know they were good Baptists. They love a good story. Look, instead of moving on, what did they do? They all stood there like saying, what happened to Amasa? Are those his guts? And you can, what did you say? Guts. Is he dead? Yeah, he's dead. How do you know he's dead? Well, look at it. And the people pushing forward, right? It's all the scene. And they were like, oh, we got a problem. What's the problem? Well, if you keep his body there, no one's going to move on. So you know what they do? Look. Yeah, I mean, you can't write this up. One of Joab's young officers, verse 11, shouted to Amasa's troop, if you're for Joab and David, come and follow. They're trying to put the fear of God in those troops. They were for Amasa. They're Amasa's troops, but Amasa's dead, so now what? Come follow us. But he lay in his blood in the middle of the road, and Joab's officers saw that a crowd was gathering around, so he pulled him off the road into a field and threw a cloak over him. No funeral, no how great thou art, no processional, no taps, no dignity. They throw him into a field and throw a what? All the while, hoping no one sees it, but here's the problem. Hold on. Who sees all of this?
God.
And this is, when you look at Joab, although it's kind of funny in some sense and weird, like, all of this came from stuff that we deal with. Anger, bitterness, jealousy, strife. And do you see how many people get involved in this? Because he killed him, now Abishai, why didn't Abishai say something? Maybe he thinks his own brother might even...
Yeah. I wouldn't turn my back on him.
Imagine you think your own brother might do you in. Oh, give me a kiss, yeah. With Amasa's, look at this. This is how loyal they are to Amasa. Now, when his body left, everyone went out with Joab. Imagine putting that on your resume. How did you get the last job? Well, the guy took it from me, so I killed him. Meanwhile, Sheba had traveled across Israel to mobilize his own clan of Bichri at the city of Abel Beth Maachah. When Joab's forces arrived, they attacked Abel Beth Maachah and built a ramp against the city wall and began battering it down. I'm going to try and do this as quick as I can. I want to tell you that. You know how amazing God is? God can use one unnamed person. So the guy B, he got rich, right? And he helped David. Joab has caused trouble. Sheba has caused trouble. We said that one person can negatively affect everything. But one person can also be used by God to change everything. And you talk about like pride and that. If you did something really fantastic and God wanted to mention you in his word and tell what you did, what would you want him to mention?
My name.
Mm-hmm. So again, how proud are we? Could God tell the best story on you and say how good you did that day and just say, it was just some woman in Macon? You see, but God uses this woman, this unnamed wise woman. It had to be a woman, right? The woman came in and said, I'll say it for you. I got it. But God uses one woman. So picture the scene. What did David say? We got to get them quickly, because if we don't get them quickly, what's going to happen? They're going to get in a city and he's going to hide up. He's going to shut up shop. It's exactly what happens. They go to this Beth Maachah, and they built it, and they start having to what? They start having to beat the wall down. And then in verse 16, there's that word, but. And God, you tell me God isn't sovereign over all of this. If you said, this is how it's all going to shake out, they'd think, look at what it says. But a wise woman, hold on. You see the backstory to this is God had her where? At the right time, in the right place, with the right amount of wisdom. God doesn't make mistakes. It's not coincidence. Maybe she'd been wise for years and no one knew that God had given her wisdom, especially for this moment. Don't ever be surprised when God's gift pays out. And don't ever be surprised that he has you in the right time and the right place. This woman couldn't imagine this. Do you think if you said to this woman one day in Macon, Georgia, I know you don't know where that is, but in 2026, what? Yeah, 2026, some guy is going to be talking about how great you are. I mean, she's been dead ages, and her testimony. Look, all you know about Sheba is what? Troublemaker. All you know about her is wise. The difference is, but one person can make that much difference. Look at what it says. So they're trying to beat down the walls of the city. That's going to take what? Time, effort. But a wise woman in the city called out to Joab. How much do you think Joab really wanted to listen to a woman? I'm not trying to be funny. Back in the day, and Joab is prideful. Joab's going to fix it himself. God is all over this. She's up there like you imagine, like Romeo and Juliet, right? Romeo's down here. Oh, wherefore art thou? Okay, like. It says she called out to Joab and he said, listen to me, Joab. Come over here so I can talk to you. Joab isn't exactly the most sensitive and he just says what? Sure, I'll come speak to you. Like, what? But God's over all of this. Joab says, she says, come over here so I can talk to you. As he approached, the woman asked, are you a Joab? So she didn't even know if it was, are you? I am. So she's heard of Joab. If you had heard of Joab and God said, go speak to him, what might you, okay, she wouldn't maybe know this, but 10 minutes before he just killed his own cousin. Not the guy you want to be like, hey, you want to go out? I am, he replied. So she said, listen carefully to your servant. I'm listening, he said. And she continued, there used to be a saying, if you want to settle an argument, ask advice at the city of Abel. I am one who is peace-loving and faithful in Israel, but you're about to destroy a local city. Why do you want to destroy what belongs to the Lord? She says, I am peace-loving, I am faithful, and God has done amazing things in this city, and you're about to destroy it. What she's saying is, you're coming after one person. You're coming after Sheba. That's all you want. But you're willing to come in and ruin God's city. Not Jerusalem, but a city that God's used. And you're willing to kill anybody just to get. Joab says, believe me, I don't want to destroy your city. Well, that's kind of like, oh, yeah, you're such a good guy. Yeah, I would never. All I want is a man named Sheba, son of Bichri, from the hill country of Ephraim, who has revolted against King David. Then he says what? And this is weird. This is Joab being humble in a way. I mean, what? Again, if you said to Joab, don't worry, we'll have a wise woman help you out, she'll be the hero of the story. Look at what he says. I'll leave your city. I don't care about the city. I just want who? Sheba. Who do you think wants to kill Sheba? Joab. If you hand him over to me, we'll leave the city in peace. If you, this woman, hand him over to me, if you can figure out how to hand him over to me, I won't attack the city. We'll leave your walls intact. All right, the woman replied, we'll throw his head over the wall to you. I mean, who believes this? I mean, that lady's wise and she's a bit crazy. She says to him, I'll do you a deal. Keep my city. Yeah? Well, I want Sheba. Don't worry, I'll just throw his head down at you. Like, this is bonkers. Like, movies of the Bible really wind me up. You don't have to make this stuff up. Just follow the Bible. It'll be crazy enough. I mean, imagine, I couldn't be a part of these times. Watching guts like on the ground and watching a head throw off a wall, I'd be all right. My stomach can't take it. Imagine that. And the woman is like, I mean, he says, we need him dead, right? All I want is a man named Sheba. That's it. He just says, actually, he just wants him so he can what? So he can kill him. And she's like, oh, don't worry about that. I'll give you his head. Verse 22, the woman went to the people with her wise advice. So God has got everybody tuned in to what? To one woman who was brave enough and crazy enough. And they cut off Sheba's head and threw it out to what? Now look, this isn't biblical. You can't cut people's head off and throw it over a wall. Don't go out thinking that's the point of the story. I mean, how nuts is it? How many of you knew the story without reading it? How many of you thought, I bet there's a wise woman that gets her head cut off and just throws it out? I mean, that was destined to happen, right? But doesn't it show you, doesn't it show you that God can deal with the enemy without you having to do it? What did Joab have to do with this? Nothing. You know what he should have done with the Mesa? Nothing. And if it was wrong, God would have what? I wonder what he's thinking when old boy's head comes off the...
First of all, stay away from that woman.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, lady. I don't want to see you ever again. Yeah.
She's tough.
So look to this. He threw it out to Joab. He blows a trumpet, calls his troop back from the attack, and they all return to their homes. Joab returned to the king at Jerusalem. That is wild. Joab's got his head. Joab's got his head, and he had how much to do with that? Oh, that drove him mental. It's almost a memorial stone to Joab. You need to just... And he had one wise woman. Joab once again became the commander of David's army. Well, that's kind of crazy too, right? Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was commander of the king's bodyguard. Adoniram was in charge of the labor force. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was a royal historian. Sheva was the court secretary. Zadok and Abiathar were the priests. Ira the Jairite was David's personal priest. He goes in, these are all the positions, but Joab you see, it almost looks like Joab's what? Got away with it. Yeah. He was dethroned as a commander of David's army, so he kills Amasa, and now he becomes...
Was Joab the one who killed Absalom?
Yes. He's the one that chunked him 3 times. Which is part of the reason, that's David had Amasa now. Yeah. But, yeah. Anyway, so... Basically, you can leave everything in the hands of God, and maybe he'll just throw a head over the wall, and everything will be good. But can you understand how Joab... Do you think Joab was really why was Joab not maybe particularly thrilled about that victory? Because he had nothing to do with it. Right. Do you see how that happens in teams? What happens if your team wins, but you had very little... what happens if you sat the bench? Yeah. Like I didn't do anything, so then that causes what? Now, if you're the star, no problem. But if you're just a backup to the backup, then what? Like, do I get a medal or not? Like, I just did nothing. I sat there.
Kind of like the NFL bench.
Yeah.
They get a Super Bowl ring.
Right. Does anyone have any questions?